Sonic the Hedgehog is a series spanning over hundreds and hundreds of video games. However, out of those many video games come a few that don't really include Sonic himself, but rather revolve around his many friends. So I thought it would be fun to go down and rank all these non-Sonic games, all these Sonic side character games, if you will, from worst to best. Originally, I was going to call this ranking every Sonic spin-off game, but that would mean I'd have to include games where Sonic is actually playable in, and we all know I'm not doing that. The only rule for this list is that Sonic can't be the main playable character. It can't be a game with Sonic in the title either, just a game revolving around his friends or characters that exist in the Sonic universe. Sonic appearing in these games is completely fine though. So with all that said, let's get right into ranking. Coming at dead last, we got the most obscure game on the entire list, Tails Music Maker. Now, this is a game I believe I emulated way back in the day, and from what I remember, it was f***ing atrocious. I didn't even know what was going on half the time. The sound effects and visuals were also very ugly. I mean, I don't really have much to say on Tails Music Maker. I think it's a game made for babies, but aside from the fact it barely felt like a video game, I just did not enjoy this one at all. Now this one is definitely gonna ruffle some feathers, but Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is a game I just could never get into. This is definitely one of those Sonic spin-off games that has somewhat of a cult following now, but me personally, I just never cared for it. Some of that may be the fact I've never been a big fan of Puyo, but at the same time, compared to the few Puyo games I've played, this one has to be my least favorite. I genuinely wouldn't even call this a bad game though, it's just a game I could never see the appeal of. I would much rather play the games higher up on the list, and again, it's just not one I go back to. Flicky? What's this doing here? Well, in case you're not aware, the 1984 arcade game Flicky has been widely considered to be the same Flicky bird found in Sonic, therefore making it a Sonic sidecast game. Flicky is by no means a bad video game whatsoever. It's a decent arcade experience, but a frustrating one at that. However, I also wouldn't consider it some gold mine. It's a very old game that just doesn't have much to it. It's a simple premise. You collect birds, avoid obnoxious tigers, repeat. Nothing bad here. It's okay. Tails Sky Patrol is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. Unlike the games before it, this is a game I like to sometimes go back to and just screw around in. I've never even completed the game despite it being so short, but just replaying those first few levels is honestly pretty fun. The concept of this Tails game where you just fly around knocking shit down is kind of clever. It's a damn shame it had to be held back by being on the Game Gear, because I could imagine this being a very fun game on the Genesis, but I guess for the time being we got Taiwan Cool Fox to hold us over. At number 4, we got Tails Adventure on the Game Gear. This is another Sonic game I don't have much experience with, but from what I do know, it's genuinely not that bad. It's kind of a puzzle platformer that's super slow-paced, but feels polished enough to be good. However, I will say, considering it's a Game Gear title and all, it kind of has some jank to it. I know calling this game an RPG is a stretch, but I do consider it a Sonic RPG at the end of the day anyways. One that's far better than whatever the hell this was. We are now at the best non-Sonic games, the greatest Sonic sidecast games. The three I truly find to be pretty good experiences for what they are. These are slightly above mediocre games at the very least. And Knuckles Chaotix is what I would consider to be one of the most 6 out of 10 games I have ever played, and that's not a bad thing at all. Although the team-up mechanic, vertical level design, and obnoxious special stages can be an absolute slog to get through, they also deliver some personality and occasionally fun aspects too. This is a game that would introduce the chaotics, so Vector, Espio, and Charmy, making it a pretty important entry. And it feels right at home with the Genesis classic Sonic games in its own weird way. I like to think of it as a cousin to Sonic CD, though again, I will say I do not consider this to be a masterpiece whatsoever, as its pacing is absolutely terrible. The level design is absolutely absurd, and each zone has 5 acts. But again, it's not a bad game. A pretty good one. Man, there really aren't any amazing Sonic Sidecast games, are there? At number 2, we got Shadow the Hedgehog 2005. Now, this is a game I consider to be one of the worst Sonic games of all time, for a very long time, ever since I was a kid. But ever since I went through and got all 10 endings plus a true final boss against Devil Doom, I found it to be, well, still pretty weak, but not bad at all. The branching storyline in this game was a terrible idea, and it just came across as extremely lazy and dull. And most of the endings just feel like filler. There was absolutely no need for 10 endings. 3 was perfectly fine. But I will say the levels themselves are not terrible. There's a lot of them designed around repetitive mission objects, such as killing certain NPCs, which I personally just didn't care for. But hey, at the end of the day, this is a second best non-Sonic game, so why don't I shed some positive light on it too? The gameplay itself is truly not as bad as people say. It really just depends on how you see it. What helped me was accepting that this is not a Sonic game at all, but rather a poor man's version of Ratchet & Clank, which sounds extremely negative on surface level, but it really gave me a deeper appreciation for the game since I admire the Ratchet & Clank series, and it truly feels like a game from that era, the early 2000s. The guns were extremely fun to use, the bosses were finite, and some of the stages were very memorable. The soundtrack alone was to die for, and that story was pure excellence, as long as you just consider the one canon ending. But with all that said, let's move on to the best non-Sonic game. To absolutely nobody's surprise, at the number 1 spot, I got Shadow Generations. This game is almost perfect, extremely fun and tight platforming, an authentic sense of Dreamcast-era speed, a very strong story, creative new power-ups which also add to Shadow's character. This game also just serves as the perfect sequel to Shadow 05. Whereas that game ended with Shadow leaving his past behind him, Shadow Generation sees Shadow forced to relive it and accept it, embracing it within him with the Doom powers. I'll say it right now. Shadow Generations is one of my favorite Sonic games of all time. I don't even think that's a crazy thing to say. I would honestly even put it above Sonic Generations. It truly belongs in my top 5 favorite Sonic games of all time, and for damn good reason. And there you have it, every non-Sonic game ranked from worst to best. There were a ton of mediocre games here, and just games I personally don't see the appeal of. So I'm very sorry if this list came off as negative. If you like any of these games, that is absolutely cool, and I respect that, which is why I would absolutely love to see your rankings in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Sonic content, as I love talking about all things Sonic. And with all that said, I'll see you guys next time. Oh my god, I forgot episode...